Hola Colchoneros, this is me, Alex, and I have with me Saint Keeks as usual. And today we have a very special guest, and finally we have Jeremy Warren with us. You guys remember him from Into the Calderon, the Twitter page, and recently he launched his new YouTube channel as well, that Athletic Podcast. And congratulations on the 100 subscribers, by the way. I just saw your tweet. So congratulations on that. So today, guys, we're gonna just talk about the review of the season. Was it like an improvement? Was it a great season, or was it just a mediocre season? So we're gonna reflect on this season. We're gonna start off with the transfer window we had last summer. I mean, I was excited to be honest because we had Julian Alvarez, which like felt to me like it was impossible. And like when he finally arrived, like it didn't really feel true to me. But then everything was going well, unless and until I think the bummer was Longley coming to Atletico Madrid of the transfer window for me. But I would say Conor Gallagher again a great signing. Sorloth a great signing, even though like we almost got the pick as well, which eventually didn't pan out the way, and something went wrong with the agent. The only two disappointed things like that was for me was like the Samuel leaving Atletico de Madrid and then the long coming to Atletico de Madrid. I mean, like if you want to replace Hermoso, like replace him with a much better replacement, especially with the fact that we were linked with David Hansco from a very long time. And then we were like, we were pulling away from the deal because they were asking for 40 or like 35, something like this. And then eventually we got for a very, very cheap option, which was Longley.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think about the transfer window last summer? I'll start off with Jeremy. What do you think about the last season's transfer window?
Hit and miss. The good news is Atletico largely did what they said they would do. They spent a lot of money. For the first time in 5 years, Atletico spent greater than 150 million euros in the transfer market. The goal last summer, I think, was to raise the competitive floor of the team. And from that standpoint, I would say it was a successful summer. However, there were big fees doled out to players who I would not identify as starters in a really competitive Atletico de Madrid side. Let's just go through each player that went in, that came in. Julian Alvarez, obviously a star player. It was pretty shocking we were able to get him. Tying up that deal was a huge statement of intent. And Alvarez, you see him now, it's taken him less than a year to become the star of the team. Conor Gallagher, 42 million euros from Chelsea. Not a great deal. The good news is it got Joao Felix off the books once and for all. That alone probably made it a pretty good deal instead of a really good deal. But Gallagher, I don't know. He was clearly signed with one particular system in mind, the 3-5-2. And in November, as we're going to talk about, Atletico abandoned that system. Simeone went back to the 4-4-2. So Gallagher was playing in an awkward position on his weaker foot, on his weaker side, not in the double pivot that he played in at Chelsea, not part of a three midfielder setup. So Gallagher gets kind of an inconclusive grade. Robin Lane-Ramond, inconclusive. The subdural hematoma he suffered in September, I think, negatively affected the rest of his season. I think, for me, he kind of gets an incomplete grade, though I wasn't really impressed with what I saw from him independently of the injury. He didn't look like the player that we see playing for Spain or that we saw playing for Real Sociedad for many years. Alexander Sørloth is a player who has divided opinion, especially lately. He ends the season with 20 goals, but I don't think you're going to find a ton of Colchoneros who think he is good enough to be the starter and play every single game next to Alvarez in attack. Juan Musso, fine. Probably the best backup goalkeeper we have had since Moya. Maybe that's going back a long time. But
Yeah, true.
in the end, we went out at the same stage of the Copa del Rey, and Musso did not play very well in those two legs against Barcelona, although not many defenses could handle them this season. So I don't know how much of the blame Musso really gets for that. And finally, we come to Longley, who, as you guys said, was the plan C last summer. Hansko would have been a really, really good signing. It was disappointing that they couldn't get that one over the line. And Longley, though, better than I expected. My expectations for him were not very high to begin with. The first half of the season, I thought he was quite good. And then over the second half of the season, we saw why he's been bouncing around from team to team the last few years, right? He conceded a penalty a month for the last 4 months of the season. That's not even close to good enough. But you can see why Simeone likes him. You can see why Simeone values having a player like him in the squad, even though he is the French equivalent to Mario Hermoso. And I've lived that experience, guys. I don't really want to live it again. I want someone a bit more secure out of possession. So that's where I'm at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, like, I would say, like, when, like, in terms of, like, selling, so we got rid of Morata, again, 30 million to AC Milan, a good deal. Joao Felix, I think that was, like, the standout, 50 million. We actually robbed Chelsea for that 50 million. And then we talked about the only, like, the Santiago Moreno leaving for Alaves. I think, again, that was, I think he should have stayed, but again, he wouldn't have get any minutes. Instead, I would have liked, like, a loan to Alaves instead, you know. And then Sam Allardyce, which was again like supposed to be 35 million or 40 million to Chelsea, which ended up between 15 to 20 million to Porto, which didn't make any sense to me. Like how the hell from 35 to 40, like we ended up selling him for 15, and that to like with 5 million every year according to the rights. Again, that'll be like too much details right now. But I think like we started the transfer window very well. We ended the transfer window, I think, all in a hurry kind of a thing. Like suddenly we were like, oh, like the transfer window is supposed to end. Like, we have like get this squad ready. So we were like, oh, who's available? Longley, yeah, fine, get him. Who should we sell? Samu, yeah, fine. Like whatever they're paying, just let him leave. So I think like it all happened in a hurry, like at the end of the transfer window. But yeah, anyway, St. Keeks, what are your views on the transfer window?
I think I agree with both of y'all, but it's like I think the main reason that we even went and spent that kind of money, that almost 200 million that we managed to spend in that summer, was because of the fact that for the first time in almost 12 years with Simeone, we've managed to not get top three, but fourth. And then it's like that's almost like a statement of Simeone effectively saying, look, as good as of a coach as I am, you've given me nothing really to work with. It's like, I love Aspilicueta. I love Witzel. I've loved them before they came into the team. I think Witzel had a kind of a shaky second half of the first year, but that second year that last year, he was imperial. He was a great defender for us. Aspilicueta did a great job for us. But at the same time, you can't turn around and tell me a 33-year-old or 34-year-old Aspilicueta and Witzel should be our starting players at any point in time of our season. Like these are supposed to be players who can help you build into the next generation with some of the young players who can learn off of them and become better players. And it's like, Hermoso, I enjoy him as a player. I think his personality is hilarious. I think you see that on the pitch. You see these moments where it's just like, what is this guy thinking of? And it's just like, and then randomly he just scores a goal from nothing. It's like, oh, okay. Like, like I remember 22-23 season where he scored that bicycle kick. I've never felt so happy in my life.
Yeah, against Hitafe. That game was insane.
Great game. And then right after that game, he did another last minute goal and he does this insane celebration. I was like, oh man, I can't hate Hermoso despite what he does from time to time. But it's like Longley does not inspire that same kind of passion for me. It's like I know what Hermoso is, right? Like I've known what he was for like quite a while. And it was a little bittersweet to see him leave at the end because of who he was as a player and these other things. But at the same time, it was a genuine moment of understanding from a sporting point of view, we do need to get better because this is a very low level when it comes to Atletico defensively. We haven't had, this is for the first time in the past like 3 seasons, we've conceded more than 30 goals in a season. Like, that's a strange thing to say for Atletico. It's worse yet for set pieces. I think I talked about that on Twitter before, where it's like, I think that's it's such a strange moment for Atletico to concede set pieces because we were the team to be afraid of when it comes to set pieces, and we did not concede them basically. So now we've almost flipped the script where it's like we are afraid of set pieces and we're not really sure if we're going to score in those situations. So it's like all of these factors combine, all of these different situations come together, and we effectively go out into that transfer window to say we need to make some separation between us and the Gironas, the Villarreals, the Real Betis of La Liga. And in a way, as you say, we did do that, but it felt sad because I felt like there was a moment where, with a little more clarity and a little less panicking, we could have taken some genuinely really good talents and pushed us a little bit closer towards those top 2 because I think they weren't as active in the transfer window. They weren't really focusing too much. I know I say that, but then they got Mbappe in Real Madrid and Dani Olmo, who arguably shouldn't have been there in the second half of the season, but whatever. Uh, so it's like that transfer window is a mixed bag of results, where it's like Solot got 24 goals last season. We put 40 million down on him. Morata got 21. There's a kind of like a Morata's first half of the season was so insane that people forget. Like, is like if he didn't get that injury, maybe his confidence pushes him to finally get that little bit extra. I don't know, but 40 million for a player who doesn't really heavily impact the difference between what Morata is not something I would say is a great success. Lenormand isn't savage. He's like a lesser version of that in terms of his defending and these other things. So it's like I could go on a list of all of these different players, except Alvarez, of course, because Alvarez is amazing. But I think I'd like to see what it is that we have planned, because I think what we saw this season in terms of, even though we got the same results in terms of the league and these other things, we got the same place in Copa del Rey, arguably we're less in the Champions League. I think I don't know if everybody could agree with me, but I think I felt more hope this season than I did at any point in time in last season, to be honest with you. So yeah.
True. I mean, like we had like a much better squad this season, even though like we had like a few things. I think the problem this season we had was like the left hand side, which was very, like important for us like the previous season and like throughout the season. But this season, the left hand side has been literally like no performance has been there. Samalino, Riquelme, Javi Galán, Danilo. We have four players in that position, and none of them performed, which I think like really reflects our season. Like how much we are like reliable on the left hand side, and how much we need to invest on the left hand side this season as well with Baina or another left back coming up, which again, which we're not talking about right now. But I think for me, left back was definitely needed, and David Hansko would have been a perfect replacement for Eric Musa, because he can play left back, he can play left center back, so like he's a bit like he can play both the positions. So that was a much better signing. But anyway, let's get ahead of this transfer window. So like the season starts, the first match we play against Villarreal. Again, it's a 2-2 draw. Oblak made a mistake, and then Cholo scored the goal, which I didn't understand why Simeone take him off in the first half itself. That was an amazing goal by Llorente, by the way. Just straight from kickoff, literally felt like FIFA, like FIFA playing FIFA with your friend. But then we had like a very slow start, a couple of draws here and there. One thing that was amazing for me is that 1-0 win away at Athletic Bilbao, which I didn't see coming at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea like how we pull that off. But anyway, moving on, and then again we had a like a beating from Lille, and then from Benfica. So it was a very slow start. Benfica we were lost. Then again Lille, which again I didn't understand the penalty position over there, and then somehow like the ball doesn't want to end up in the back of the net for us. Sorloth missing a first half hat trick, and Griezmann missing a few chances as well.
Yeah.
And then we play Real Madrid. Then you say you can curse Courtois all you want, but yeah, he's actually a rat. And yeah. But moving on to that, and then yeah, he obviously the match gets suspended. They score, and then I think the Javi Galan, the only like the highlight for me this season for Javi Galan is that assist to Angel Correa with amazing ball. Angel Correa, getting past Thibaut Courtois and scoring that 1-1 equalizer, which felt like a victory for some reason. But yeah, anything. I think for me, like the first half was very slow. Maybe we were settling in. Simeone was figuring out like the formation, because we switched a lot of formation within that first few matches. What do you guys think about that? I will start off with Jeremy.
Well, it didn't help Cholo that the club didn't bring him any new players before August. It just continued to feeds into this perception that Atletico are something of a lazy club, that Atletico are not proactive in the market and never have been in the Miguel Angel Gil era. And it doesn't matter whether Simeone is the coach or not. Simeone is not fixing that. No coach is fixing that. That's why we talk about this on my show a lot. Atletico are not run in a way that other elite clubs are run. That's why some of the demands and the expectations that are placed on Simeone are not always fair. And I think it's important to combat that from time to time. Simeone makes mistakes. He's not infallible. The first couple months of the season proved that. We had some really, really poor displays. I'm thinking particularly of that Lille game where it's inexplicable how we lost that 3-1. That was a game that should have ended 5-1 to Atletico. The Surloth misses the non-existent penalty on Koke in the second half. That still blows my mind. One of many dubious calls in the Champions League this season, as we'll talk about. The Betis game, I think, was the low point, though. The Betis and Benfica visits were low points. Atletico just were nowhere on those days. And I remember Koke talking about after the Betis game, we tried, we hit the post, we had all this possession, we tried, and that felt really like a nadir because it didn't feel like anything was working. It seemed that not necessarily that the new signings were already failures, but that this adaptation process, all the excitement that August had brought with 6 new players coming in, Alvarez at the head of the class, it felt like this was going to be a true transition season, that Atletico weren't going to be contending seriously for trophies. Obviously, then things changed, but that was what keyed the formation change, and it keyed a period of somewhat sustained success. But it was really tough going the first couple of months, guys. It was really, really tough to watch. We weren't attacking very well. The passages of play weren't fluid at all. We weren't very secure or good on the ball. And defensively, we still looked really weak despite all the investment. And we really just needed time to gel. And the club didn't really afford Simeone and the squad that kind of benefit.
Exactly. I mean, like I forgot to mention the Real Betis game. Actually, like that could have been like a humiliation. Real Betis with every attack, like it looked like they're gonna score, and they hit the post. It was really like Real Betis against the Atletico Madrid goal post, literally. Somehow the game ended like just 1-0, and which was, I think, like still, I think that was like the worst performance I've seen of Atletico Madrid. But then, you go, Keeks. What do you think about the first half of the season?
It's the same feeling where it's like it felt kind of sad to watch because it wasn't that I didn't believe Simeone could get us out of Europe because I've seen him do it before, especially 2 seasons ago in the 22-23 season. Like just before that World Cup, some truly horrendous football. Like wow, that was terrible. I felt like really hopeless in that period of time. But even then I felt like Simeone could pull us out of this. And it's the same feeling in that period of time. But it's the frustration of Solot and Lenormand were the 2 early signings, and they played 2 preseason games, maybe half of that. Like Solot played one half of the game against Kichi in Hong Kong, and then maybe 60 minutes in the next game. Lenormand is kind of the same feeling there because we were still kind of experimenting with Mourinho and Costis and all these other players from the academy and stuff. And so it was just like, we're trying to figure out our midfield when the only genuine starter in the midfield that we could actually use was Koke, because Barrios was in the Olympics. De Paul was just in the Copa del Rey and recovering. Alvarez went to the Copa del Rey and then the Olympics right afterwards and did not get any rest. And then the same kind of, it's just like, so what is Simeone supposed to work with? And it's like, some part of you is just like, all right, well, we saw what the academy players could do, but I don't believe the academy players were going to fix what was effectively a really shaky kind of start for Atletico in terms of the sort of organization, especially the midfield. I felt like there was a lot of places that we needed to try and figure out, and then when we did figure it out, thankfully, everything just clicked, and it went from one moment to another to another to another, and we just kind of just kept on in that momentum. But it's like those low points are low points that don't really change, because it's like that Lille game kind of put a like, what do you call it, almost like a star on the back of Sola, where it's like, are you really going to be our number 9? Because Griezmann and Alvarez literally set you up perfectly to do anything that you wanted. You could score a goal, and I'll be happy with you. You got 4 clear-cut chances and you scored none. That can't be right. And then the Betis game, I don't know what to say about that. That was just awful. I think any of my propaganda I could have put for Molina going down the drain, I was just like, damn, that's it's over. It's over. That's how I felt like after the game. But it's like, at the same time, I think another part that we also kind of forgetting is Giuliano Simeone was kind of outside of the team at that point in time. And I felt like in that Betis game, there was a time, this was the game to start him because DePaul at that point in time was having a terrible start to the season, a truly terrible start to the season. He eventually came back, but it's like Giuliano, every time he came off the bench, it was just like electricity goes through the team. All of a sudden, we get a little bit of moments and like pushing a little further. And that first half was where we didn't see some of these new blood is kind of where we saw some of the feelings of Atletico, I think. But Simeone figured it out, I guess, eventually, and then it worked out. But the fact that we didn't really get a preseason, and I think this Club World Cup again, I think I remember seeing it on your podcast, Jeremy, where you just mentioned how the Club World Cup is kind of a weird situation where it's like it might just be for the best to either win it all, get some money for the transfer window, get your badge on your crest and everything, or you just bow out super early because that no preseason thing might just do a lot of damage for us coming into the next season. So I don't know. That's how I feel about that first half, to be honest.
Fair point, actually, fair point. That's a very fair point. But like next one, we come on to like certainly we change. Simeone goes to 4-4-2, and then we have Alvarez Griezmann partnership up front, and then again, so the left hand side again, so Galan, someone has like won trust of Simeone and comes back to the left back position. Gallagher drops into left midfield, and we have Barrios, De Paul, and then Julian comes back to the team as well. And then I think the turning point for me was the game against PSG, which somehow we won. Which again, I understand how we won that game, to be honest. And
We
I
beat the
think like
champions of Europe.
We did.
yeah,
That's right. We are really the champions of Europe, guys. That's exactly it. Yes.
exactly. And despite like our fullbacks getting killed by the wingers, Barcola, Dembele, literally, tons of chances for PSG, but somehow one long ball to Griezmann, another long ball to Korea, and 2-1. We're going home happily. And again, since a lot of people are saying about Molina again, don't forget Molina scored that opening goal for
Yeah,
Atletico de Madrid.
yeah.
He came like,
We're back up.
Manuel Molina rescued the Champions League campaign.
exactly. And for me, I think that was the turning point. And then we played Mallorca again Mallorca as well. Again, Oblak long ball, Giuliano with that with that character he is. He just like run past Maffeo, sets up Alvarez, and then somehow we win that game as well, Mallorca game, which we didn't create anything. Just one chance, we take it. Alvarez 2-1, again a good victory. And then I think something like Atletico de Madrid, like we get into the groove, everyone starts settling in. Then comes again like the very big victory away in the Champions League at Sparta Praha with the amazing free kick from Julian Alvarez. And then we go on and like we set a new record for 15 match unbeaten streak, and everything is up in the air. Everyone starts hoping again. Everyone goes like, oh, we can finally do it this season. Julian Alvarez, Solo, everyone, like it was a free flowing football. And then I think there was one scare between against Sevilla, and which we won 4-3. And then suddenly like we were coming back, in the matches in the 90th minute, scoring these late goals. And we were all talking about like how we, like literally gets very focused after the 80th minute or so, or that like we were literally getting compared with Bayer Leverkusen from the previous season, who again became the champions by scoring those late goals. And then suddenly with those 15 match unbeaten streak, we beat Barcelona as well. We went on to become the winter champions, whatever they call in Spain, winter champions. And then everyone starts, hoping, and then comes the long break, international break, and then the winter transfer window. Until that moment, I think there was a very, very optimism about Atletico de Madrid. What do you guys think about those 15 match unbeaten streak and the change of formation and everything? Let's start off with Jeremy, you only.
It was a lot of fun. And I think the key to that winning streak was that in only 3 of those 15 games did Atletico concede more than one expected goal. So that's 12 out of those 15 games in which the Atletico defense really found a groove. And we really found a formation that worked. St. Keeks mentioned Giuliano Simeone a few minutes ago. Does Giuliano count as a summer signing? Because if he does, other than Alvarez, he was the best player we recruited last summer. I mean, I know he was Atletico's property and all, but he wasn't here last year. He was at Alaves. And Giuliano, I think, kind of petered out, fizzled out a bit toward the end of the season, but when he came into the team, it was like a bolt of lightning. The Leganés game at home, the 3-1 comeback win, he was vital in that game. He scores his first league goal against Las Palmas at the start of this winning streak as well. He offered a dynamism and explosiveness, a ferocity, a sort of violence about him that we haven't had from a wide position in a long time. Like Yannick Carrasco was kind of this player, but also he didn't have Giuliano's gallop. I don't think he had Giuliano's athleticism. Better dribbler and a better creator, but not the kind of forceful like power and athleticism and speed that Giuliano has. He offered something completely different to the other options we have in the squad, and that's why his dad started him 30 consecutive games, because he knew there was no other player like Giuliano, like Cholito in the team. So Giuliano was key to that. His entry allowed Atletico to move kind of flexibly. He offered that flexibility from the 3-5-2 to move back to the 4-4-2/4-3-3 in attack. And that really unlocked some things. The Alvarez and Griezmann pairing was very good during this time. This was Griezmann's best period of the season. I still think about his goal against Valladolid on a near daily basis. I'm not really sure how he pulled it off. And I know we'll talk about this later on, I'm sure, but it was one of those moments that reminds you that Griezmann still has some magic in his boots. And I know there's been a lot of discourse over where he is now as a player amid this contract renewal the other day, but he leaves those little details that make you believe that there's still a really good player in here. His goals against Sevilla as well, that emotional comeback at the Metropolitano, that crazy 4-3 game. Another player I wanted to mention, we talked about how the midfield wasn't really settled early in the season. This was the point not only when Giuliano emerged, but when Pablo Barrios really came into his own. Barrios has been playing as a 5 for 2 seasons, and that's not his normal position. He comes up through the academy as an 8, as an interior, as an advanced playmaker, and Simeone has retrained him to be quite a good pivot, even though it's not his role. I'm a huge Pablo Barrios fan. He might be my favorite player in the team at this moment, because I see just the enormous potential in him. It gives you a source of pride when players like Barrios and Giuliano come through the academy and establish themselves in the first team. You see how that has happened on a much larger scale at FC Barcelona amid their financial difficulties. For Atletico to have a couple of academy kids rise and really make their presence felt in the first team this year amid breakthrough campaigns, that's a big plus. These are potential. Barrios, certainly. Giuliano, I think, is a little bit more up for debate. But Barrios, especially during this period of the season, really established himself as, I think, an undeniable pillar for the future. Even though he had some struggles with red cards later on in the year, but it was during this point in the season when Barrios was absolutely fundamental. I think the stat was of his first 16 starts this season, we didn't lose any of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I mean, exactly like I said, we were literally the winter champions. We never won an away game at Barcelona. We win that game again. Who was saying Molina again? That was a Molina cross as well.
Yeah.
With that 2-1 win. But anyway, we move on to that. I think the winter transfer window comes up. I think for me, that was the point where I think we should have made some reinforcements, especially for like a defensive midfielder. I think we really had like a good chance to get to the title, whether it's the Champions League, whether it's the La Liga, because like we were leading the La Liga at this point. We just needed some reinforcement as in a midfielder because Koke was out of the team because of the injury and stuff, and then Pablo Barrios has to like do all the stuff. Also, not to mention, I think Rodrigo De Paul had a really good season as well. This season, I think like he really emerged as well. For example, like his performances for Argentina, he actually really matched that performances with Atletico de Madrid as well. So that was again good to see as well. But for me, I think only 2 players were there, like for that creative work. That was the Griezmann and Rodrigo de Paul. Other than that, I think like we needed more creators in the team as well. With again Julian Alvarez again dropping deep, doing that creative work as well. But I think we needed some reinforcement in the winter transfer window to in order to like to go much deeper into the season. But anyway, we're gonna talk about this. Your thoughts, St. Keeks, on the 15-match unbeaten thing, and then eventually the winter transfer window.
I feel like you took a lot of words out of my mouth. It's that the poll period of time was I think we got to see exactly why we wanted to keep the Paul in our squad, because it's like that. You saw at different points in times in previous seasons where he would have these moments where he'd be like, "Wow!" Especially at the latter end of the season, usually when we're already out of all competition, you'd just be like, "Oh wow, this is insane! This guy's really good." Right? And then we'd start back the season and it'd be sometimes good, sometimes not good, sometimes good. Like last season, we saw a similar kind of vein to this, where DePaul had this like 2 or 3 month period where he felt like this is the best midfielder in Europe. It's like that's how it felt like at times. And then this season, it wasn't just 2 or 3 months. It was just like a yeah, I feel it now. Like I that person that you see in Argentina, I'm just always that. And we got to see it from that period of time. He's pivotal in almost all of the games that we just mentioned. Barrios is also like incredibly pivotal, and it feels weird because it's like Koke loses his starting spot for the first time in years, and it's like I'm a huge Koke fan, one of my favorite players ever, and so to see that was just like it's like a bittersweet feeling because it's like I wanted Koke to be a part of this, but he didn't really mind. I think every time that he went in the interviews, he's just happy that the team is winning. He didn't really care. But I think after that is like that whole 15 game window, it was a genuine, like there's a nagging moment in the back of my head. It's like, I know for a fact that Atletico won't sustain this if we don't get somebody in the January transfer window. I believe that wholeheartedly. It's like that defensive midfield position was a position that we needed because Koke and Barrios are both not defensive midfielders at all. They're both players who like to play further forward. They like to create those chances from that midfield position. And when we got the trying to refresh me, I was a little scared because I thought we would hear a lot more news, especially in that position. We heard nothing. There was like a radio silence. I was like, okay, well, maybe. So effectively, the club said we're going to bet on Barrios and Cocaine not getting injured till the end of the season. Barrios had that unfortunate red card against Alvarez. Sorry, not Leverkusen, and Alvarez had that insane performance where he basically pulled us out of a losing game into a win. We had that unfortunate one against Celta Vigo where Solot just where I felt like everything was lost, and then Solot just decided, yeah, I'm going to score a goal from nothing. Again, those late goals just kept on like showing up and showing up and showing up, and it just felt like we had a chance to do these things. And that 15 game win streak kind of, I knew it wasn't going to be sustainable, but at the same time, it was such a great period of time where I was just like, yeah, the club that the way that I feel about the club is being shown to the world right now. And I appreciate all of the players. Longley had his best period of time in the season. I still felt I saw moments in that period of time where I think would eventually show up again later in the season. People didn't believe me because I felt like I was being a Debbie Downer. I was ruining the party. But I said there are some key moments in these set pieces in these corners. And then it showed up in the Sevilla game. That Sevilla game when Luke Bacchio scored straight from that corner. I felt like genuinely disgusted because nobody was there. That how could you be that free and how could you leave Oblak that open on our corner? It's just like we just scored. We just scored. And I'm happy that we won that game. But in reflection, it was just like this moment where it's like conceding 3 goals in the manner that we did to Sevilla, the fact that they had 4 chances and scored 3 is like, well, it's one of those games, and I'm glad that we came back from it. But this could have bad repercussions later on, and we do need to fix some things. So that's, I guess that's how I felt at that point in time, and I guess I was right, but I didn't really want to be.
Right. You rather would have been very wrong.
Yeah, just I remember the same feeling last season where I was just like, wow, Real Madrid has a lot of injuries. I sure hope they dropped some points, and then they just never did.
Yeah.
And it just won everything. Like the only thing they didn't win was the 2 games that they lost to us. Every other game they won. It's just like that's all right, I guess. I wish
Which
that kind
is
of happened there.
which is still so funny to think about, given how not good we were in 2023-24.
Yeah.
That Real Madrid team beat literally everybody. Controversially or not, they beat everybody except us. It
Yeah.
was very, very weird. In the league and in the Copa del Rey, they just could not figure us out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
The power of Axel Witzel's throw.
Yeah, exactly.
It was, man. Mhm.
True. But anyway, moving on through that, like here comes our first loss, and that was like away at Leganes, and like our 15 match unbeaten streak comes to an end. And I think this match really hurts, to be honest. Leganes, I think I have no idea how they like lose this one. Griezmann had a penalty, he missed. Alvarez had a chance in the first half, hit the post, and again we had some chances, and somehow Leganes scored from. I think it was the same guy who scored in the Metropolitano as well. I forgot his name. But eventually we lost that game, and then I think like from this point, like there was like mistakes happening. Like Simeone said, like like we this season was like whatever happened, we couldn't win because of our own mistakes. And I think from at this point, like it just like kept on happening. And still at Leganes, we were still, I think, we were the La Liga leaders. We had many chances to like to stretch that lead from Barcelona and Real Madrid, but we just couldn't for some reason. And then the next game after Leganes was the Bayer Leverkusen one again, followed by a red card, and then again Julian Alvarez, I think one of the best performances I've seen from a player. Like again, man down and still getting to win that game. And as soon as Puro and Kapi got the yellow card, I knew we're gonna get him sent off for some reason. I just knew that. I just knew. I just knew that, and eventually that happened, and we won the match 2-1, which I think again, I think that was Leverkusen was like one of the best matches we had this season. And then comes the Villarreal game again. I think some few mistakes here and there. We just couldn't finish the chances we had. Griezmann saw a lot. We just couldn't finish. Again, 1-1. Again, we had the chance to stretch our lead at the La Liga table. We couldn't. Then Champions League came last match day. We won that easily. Salzburg. We won against Mallorca, and then the Copa del Rey game against Getafe, we won, and then Real Madrid game again in La Liga with Julian Alvarez Panenka, and we conceded again from that left hand side. I think again that mistake, Javi Galan, and then again Longley. Like how can you like, because like we know Rodrigo is dangerous, especially like Rodrigo actually performs against us much better than Vinny does. For some reason, that guy steps up against us. And again, Rodrigo provided that assist. He just dribbled past Famolino, Javi Galan, put the ball in, and then eventually they scored. And it was 1-1. Still, we had a chance. Still, nothing was lost. We still had a chance. Still had a chance. Comes the Celta Vigo game. Again, Pablo Barrios red card. Again, one of our, again, a mistake from our player. And I think, like, which was very, very wrong, to be honest, to go after Pablo Barrios after this match. Like like I can sense like you're disappointed because of the red card, and like of course like because like, it happened twice now in the season, first the Leverkusen game and the Celta Vigo game. But I think going after Pablo Barrios was just, I think, wasn't good at all from the fan base, because again these guys are like future, let's say we say El Futuro Capitano. So, which was not correct. But then eventually, we were having a good time, and then the Copa del Rey came, and then that month came. I think, like, seriously, the March month. I think everybody knew this is, it can either like make us win titles, or you have to like destroy our whole campaign, the whole season, and eventually. It was what happened was, unfortunately. So it started off with Barcelona Atletico game 4-4, which I think was a bizarre match. I think it was both the teams did defensive mistakes in this match, Barcelona as well and us as well. But again, like us conceding from corners, have no like how are we conceding 2 goals, not even one, 2 goals. And then comes the I think the next match after that, Barcelona Copa del Rey game was Atletico Bilbao. I think that was an alarm, to be honest. We were leading 1-0, and then Athletic Bilbao really crushed us in the latter part of the game. They hit the post, I think thrice or twice, I can't
Yeah,
remember
3 times in like
exactly.
a
And
10-minute span too.
exactly, that was a wake up call. That was a wake up call for our defense, but somehow we were just like couldn't focus, and like we could like really sense in the defense like there's no calm, like they were panicking, especially Longley making those decisions, like panic decisions. And then eventually the Champions League game comes in against Real Madrid, which still hurts us against Real Madrid. And again, I would say that was a very, very blunder mistake from Jimenez to let Brahim Diaz score from there. We had like 7, 8 players in the box, and somehow Brahim Diaz scored that goal, which doesn't make sense to me. It was amazing goal from
Technically,
Julian Alvarez.
technically, that goal shouldn't have stood there because Vinny was in front of Oblak and he could not see it. Yet that never went over. I want to mention that just to mention, like, because I remember the same thing happened when we scored against Bayern some years ago in the group stages, right? I think Zhao or somebody was in front of Neuer. We lost the game 4-0, but we were 2-0 down. We scored a goal. Neuer signals to the referee, hey, he's in front of me, whatever. So VAR looks at it again, disallows the goal. I thought in that moment
It's
we were going to
different.
look at
It's
it.
different with Real Madrid. To be honest, it's different with Real Madrid. You can't. It's
You said it,
different.
not me.
It's like it's different. Like we can't really complain. They're gonna say like, oh, like you're gonna complain against us. You want a red card? Like eventually it would have
Yeah.
turned up against us only. But anyway, again, I mean that was two mistakes and we conceded 2 goals. Again, Javi Galan, Rodrigo literally killed Javi Galan on that first goal. The way he ran, cut inside, amazing goal by him for sure. But again, Julian Alvarez like mashed that goal with that brilliance of that curler from outside the box. But again, that Brahim Diaz goal shouldn't have stood, and what a stupid guy coming after Simeone for some. I have no idea what the fuck coming after Simeone. It doesn't make sense. Such childish behavior. Anyway, moving on from that, another disappointing result in Getafe. We are winning 1-0. Korea goes to get the red card, then like we lose 2-1. It doesn't make sense to me. Just blunder after blunder, and then eventually that game at Metropolitano, that penalty shootout, obviously that double touch with IFAB now says like it should have been a retaken penalty. Like, oh, what the hell are we supposed to do now? Like you should have like said that at the moment. It's, even though like the board members didn't really back us up as well, which I think I'm really disappointed with the board members like Miguel Angel Gilmarin and then Enrique Cerezo as well. I don't understand these guys. Like, what the hell? Like, you have your rivals like literally cheating with you years and years and years on. Like, yet like you still do nothing about it. I think like there's too much focused on that sports city around Metropolitano that they don't really care about this stuff. I think they just want like the money, you know.
Yeah.
It's like flowing in the club. But anyway, next game, we win 2-0 at Metropolitano at Barcelona. Yeah, against Barcelona. Solot again scoring against Barcelona. I mean, like, I hope Solot had this grudge against every other La Liga club that he had against Barcelona for some reason. But eventually, 2-0 again, and then we lost the game 4-2 again. Longley, I think that first goal, that Lewandowski again, Longley was that mistake, and then eventually it was like 2 goals within a couple of minutes, and then we
How
lost
many times
4-2.
have we mentioned Longley so far in this?
Yeah, I
About
think first half,
12.
yeah, first half, he was really good. I think first half he was really good. The second half, completely different. And then Espanyol again, a draw again. Not to mention Longley with that penalty. Make that 13, and then that 1-0 with Ferran Torres. Should I mention Longley again? Because I think like the ball went through that space only. But yeah, there you go. I think that was March. A lot of mistakes, a lot of matches. Some we can say the referee mistakes as well, if you want to include those as well. But yeah, anyway, Jeremy, what do you think about the March one? What went wrong with this?
First of all, it was terrible. I had a really terrible time. What went wrong? Some regression to the mean. You saw several players, Javi Galan, Clement Longley among them, a lot of them in the defense and in the midfield. You saw several players kind of regress to the mean. They were overperforming in the first half of the season. That's not necessarily a sin. We had a lot of overperformance during the 2020-2021 season that led us to produce, I think, 50 points from the first half of the season, and we end up winning the league anyway. So overperformance is not necessarily a sign that everything's going to go wrong in the second half of the season, but this time it kind of did. Javi Galan is kind of emblematic of the transfer policy that exists at Atletico. Here is a player that they found for cheap. Here is a player that knew the Spanish league, had experience, and Celta Vigo were willing to take a player in part exchange for him. That's, in Miguel Angel Gil's eyes, that's the perfect transfer deal. In the eyes of pretty much every other elite club, that's enough to hang up the phone. But Golan wasn't even supposed to be here this year. I think we would do well to remember that he wasn't even supposed to be in the squad. He was supposed to. I think Galatasaray wanted to loan him or something. That's the team that sticks out to me. He ends up staying, and he ends up putting up three or four decent months of performance. I wouldn't say great, but he offered stability at an obvious problem position. I love Reinildo, but Reinildo's time in this team is up. I just don't think he has the quality on the ball. Simeone recognized that as well. He barely played the last couple of months. So
I think mostly because with that, like the injury he had in the Real Madrid game.
Yeah,
I
he
think
just never recovered.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really sad because he came in that as like a last second transfer in January, instantly turned us around, instantly turned our defense.
Best January transfer, I would say, in a very long, for 5 million as well. I think that guy was a beast when he came to Atletico Madrid.
You're disrespecting Daniel Voss, man. What about that transfer? What about Connie 10 years ago? What about that one?
If you're mentioning that, like, don't forget to mention Matt Doherty as well, like the best right back we got.
Jeez, the guy who played all of like 12 minutes here. Simeone didn't know who this guy was. Come on. As for what went wrong in those 2 months, specifically March, after the Athletic game, I really felt like, damn, they're going to be in this, right? They're going to be in La Liga till the end. Like, this is... I had a similar feeling in both of the years in which we won the title under Simeone, that, you know, we've done the double over Athletic. I felt that was symbolic because Athletic were better than us in 23-24. Atletico were not one of the 4 best teams in the league. Season before this one, we were fortunate to finish top 4. I felt that was a pretty symbolic win, and then it just all goes to hell after that. Simeone has talked pretty openly about the Getafe game being the one that really set us back and really kind of ruined our season. And there is a pretty good case to be made for that. It was a really bad game. We threw away the first half. We get a lifeline, a gift of a penalty that Sirlot smashes in, and then Angel Correa loses his head. And I was very disappointed in Correa after that. When he was a much younger player, I mean, you guys probably remember this, but he was pretty petulant. He had a penchant for some immature behavior, red cards, losing his head, losing his temper. I thought that had kind of been worked out of his game, and it was not. And you saw the knock-on effect that it had on us, because Correa gets this multi-game suspension, and we don't have that weapon off the bench without him. And during this time, you also saw errors from a bunch of players where we talked about regression to the mean, but the heat of the title race, like the spotlight's glare, makes people act pretty funny. You know, Pablo Barrios was pretty much mistake-free for like 3 months to start the season. He gets 2 red cards in 3 games. Robin Lenormand gives away silly penalties and silly fouls. Clement Longley, Reinildo giving away silly penalties and silly fouls. In the first leg of the Champions League tie at the Bernabeu, 2 defensive errors lead to 2 Real Madrid goals. You know, Javi Galan gets turned inside out by Rodrigo like 3 times in the first 10 minutes, and we were fortunate not to be 2-0 down at that time. Mm-hmm. And then Jose Jimenez gets put on the floor for the Brahim goal. And should it have been looked at least by VAR? Yeah, probably. But the larger point is, I mean, it wasn't. And Jimenez lost his balance, lost his footing. Brahim turned him inside out. That showed the fine margins, you know, because otherwise we were very good that night at the Bernabeu. In terms of our passages of play, in terms of our possession, in terms of how much pressure we applied for a good 40 minutes of that game. Rodrigo de Paul that night especially was fantastic. And I thought we deserved more. It was disappointing not to come out of that with the draw. And it led to the BS that became the second leg. And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but the IFAB clarification yesterday, damn, you might as well book us in the quarterfinals, right? I'm just waiting for our Champions League quarterfinal against Arsenal. When's that starting? Because I feel really good about it, you know, 90 days after the fact, after it's become a global scandal, in which everyone and their mother realizes what happened, understands what happened, and we just kind of shrug our shoulders about it. And the reason the club didn't make a big deal out of it is because the Metropolitano is getting the Champions League final in 2 years. You're going to make a big court case out of this with UEFA and risk not having a Champions League final in Madrid.
I agree. I think at this moment, like, every football world was with us. Literally
it felt really good from that standpoint, because everyone knew that Real Madrid stole this from us, just like they stole 2 Champions League finals from us, just like they've stolen any number of things from us over the past.
Exactly.
Just during the Simeone era.
True, this one had like but much more noise than the others. This one had much more noise. I think everyone we could have literally like literally like hold them with their neck or something. Like like yo, this what happened was wrong. We could have like let out an apology from UEFA as well. But again, back to the point, they want money coming in. Metropolitano is hosting the Champions League final. So yeah, but
That's really where it is, and it was disappointing but not surprising to see the club take a pretty, I guess, pacifist stance over it. There were a couple of kind of strongly worded statements, but nothing really that's gonna get you out of your seat. But yeah, I don't really, part of me doesn't really blame the team for not really getting up after that. The fact that Barcelona was the very next opponent, it led to a very weird atmosphere at the Metropolitano, and going 2-0 up in that game is probably why Atletico lost the game, because Lewandowski creates 2-1 out of nothing. And Barcelona this season were able to flip the switch unlike anyone I've seen in years. Just they could score goals for fun. And a team with that kind of vibrancy and that kind of energy against an Atletico side that was down on its luck, down on in terms of its fitness, its mentality. We were, by the end of that game, we were easy pickings. And oh, by the way, it was Reinildo who inadvertently directs Lamine Yamal's hopeful shot into the net for 3-2, just kind of putting a cherry on the icing
I
on the
think
cake.
yeah, I think that's true. I think yeah, March I think was the month where we actually lose three competitions: La Liga, Champions League, and the Copa del Rey itself, and we just couldn't do anything about it. But coming back to the Champions League game, I think we could have won that game. I think we had a very good chance to progress to the quarterfinals because of the fact like we just scored in the first minute in Conor Gallagher. Everything was set and the fans was there. The atmosphere was just like wild from the first minute, and somehow we just like couldn't like get through that line. We just couldn't score the second goal. There was half chances here and there, but we just couldn't find the net. I still remember that Angel Correa chance only if we back pass to Julian Alvarez.
Yes.
That
Alvarez is right there,
that
man. He's unmarked. Cut it
exactly
back. Just cut it back.
exactly
It's 2-0. Game over.
exactly exactly, and within the 90 minutes as well. That's still I still think about that one actually. But Copa del Rey, I think it could have been a great comeback in the Barcelona match because we were winning 2-0. I think we just take the things too lightly. We get a little bit like, that calm, not that much focused, and then suddenly Lewandowski strikes us, and then eventually, uh, I think it was Ferran Torres scoring the
Yep.
equalizer, and yeah, and then it was like everyone knew what's going to happen. Everyone had that, like, that, oh shit, are we going to lose this game as well? And then there was panic in the team. And then eventually, yeah, all of a sudden it's 4-2. Within the last 20 minutes, it's almost 4-2. And then, yeah, game over. And then that's, to be honest, March was, I think, done and dusted for us, literally shattered our hopes. And I can understand from the player perspective of view as well, because, like, when you, like, there's heartbreak after heartbreak, so like like you feel like a little bit low on confidence. So which I think which explains the latter part of the season where we just there was no consistency. But yeah, anyway, St. Keeks, what do you think about that? This last April March month.
Um, a lot of emotions, but uh, I think that month, like it crushed me a little bit. Like I think at some point, like that Getafe game was a frustrating experience because it was like that first half was some of the worst football I've seen Atletico play in some years. Ironically, we talked about the Betis game, right? And where we felt like we were just outmatched. That Getafe game just wasn't a good watching. Like I just felt like I didn't want to watch this game. Lamar came onto the pitch, managed to create a chance out of nothing. Nice, we got a goal. Please just defend. Don't do anything crazy. Correa loses his head. Correa has one game a season where he does something that will probably lose you the game or at least put you in a bad position, right? Like I remember which game was it? Was it Granada? Where he basically does an awful back pass and effectively gives away a goal after we just got ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like okay. The random I don't want to blame Korea for the Rudiger red card because that wasn't a red card. So I'm taking that back. That not that one. but it's like I can name games, and I really wish I couldn't name games because Korea is one of those fan favorites. But it's like Korea has a lot of really good moments and is a very valuable member because he comes off of that bench, he creates that moments out of nothing. He has that vision. He can be something special in that box. And then at the same time, you have to kind of weigh the risk and reward of if you give him too much minutes, he's probably going to lose his head and do something you really don't want him to do. And unfortunately, that was the day. It was also his birthday, which is the worst time to do it. It was just like, "Ah, not today, please." Like, and we go down. I think even after the one, even with the 1-1, I think we shouldn't have conceded that second goal, but whatever. I think the damage was done. If we just had to move on. I actually didn't get to see the second goal because I had switched. After the 1-1, I was like, I'm not watching this. I know we're gonna lose. So I switched to Premier League and I was watching. I think it was Arsenal or something. I was trying to enjoy my evening, and and after that it was the I don't know. It's like that first Real Madrid game. I feel like not the Champions League, but the actual in the league where we played. I don't know if you'll agree on me on this, but I personally I don't like those penalties. I don't like when you take a shot and then you get the chance to score on a goal afterwards anyway. I would have much preferred we got the red card on Ceballos and played against 10 men because that was a game where in that first half we were much better than them, and yet it felt like we didn't. Some part of the team felt like nerves, and we couldn't really convert our chances. We got a penalty and we got a 1-0, but it's like I think if we got that red card, we could have pushed and we could have gotten the win for sure. And it's like that win pushes us mentally into that next spot of oh right, we are still Atletico. We can still really do something special again. And I feel like it kind of more of these things. It's like that more of these moments of defensive errors. Like I saw that moment where it's like Rodrigo beats Galan, he beats thing, and it's just like okay, as much as he's doing this, that ball that he's putting in is not particularly good. You just clear that easily, right? Longley, easy clearance. It somehow gets to Bellingham. I don't know how it gets to Bellingham. Mbappe scores a great volley. I At that point in time, I felt like, oh no, we're going to lose this match.
That was a great block by Jimenez, by the way.
It
Like he
was,
blocked.
but it that's the worst part too. Is like Jimenez covers for the mistake, and it still wasn't enough. And like that's kind of part of the difference, I guess, with between Atletico and Real Madrid right now. Is like I think, despite how much I rate Griezmann, despite how much I rate Alvarez, Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, and then still having players like Endrick and Goulet off the bench. Even Brahim, even though not my personal favorite, still has a lot of quality to give you that extra oomph, to give you something onto that pitch in terms of attacking quality. And that's not even mentioning Bellingham or Valverde just taking a shot from like a million miles out and scoring a goal. It's like these are the qualities that they have as a team that you kind of have to just respect. And I feel like at times we really didn't respect that throughout the season, especially in the Champions League, where last season the games that we played was so scrappy between Real Madrid and Atletico, where it's like any mistake either team made, we were going to score, and Atletico managed to pounce every time, every single time. Like the Morata goal against, like some mix up between Camavinga and Rudiger, Morata gets a goal. Vinicius makes a stupid back pass. Griezmann dribbles past him and scores at the near post. It's like these are that feeling of just wanting that win against Real Madrid, that real actual hate against Real Madrid that we didn't have this season, but we did have last season, wasn't there. But
I think this season, I think where we lacked was like the final third pass. Like we couldn't really like
yeah,
we were reaching at that point. Like we'll just like need one more pass to score a goal. This is where like I think we fucked up with the decisions because even I remember against Real Madrid in the league as well, in the Champions League as well.
mhm.
Llorente had a very few good chances, like to pass it to the player when he was playing the right back. He was in the box, and then Asensio blocked those passes. And there were moments where I think like if we find the right pass in the final third, we would have like scored against Real Madrid easily. But I think this season that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
The opposite, it happened against Barcelona this season, which
right.
he did find those passes against Barcelona. But yeah, and but anyway, I continue.
Yeah, I agree. And that actually builds into another point I was about to make, which is the unfortunate fall off of Griezmann, which was coming from that great form between that February to now to the end of the season, especially in the March part of the season. He didn't really do anything on the pitch, and it was one of the few times I watched Griezmann basically be a bystander in an Atletico shirt, and at times it almost felt like we were playing with 10 men. That first half that we played against Real Madrid, we had so many chances where it felt like Griezmann was just kind of taking too long on the ball, where the pass could have been a little further, that movement could have been a little bit quicker, and it's just like I don't want to put all of the pressure on him because it doesn't make sense to put 11 men on the pitch and then blame one man. But when whenever Atletico has put pressure on Griezmann before, with the exception of one time in the Champions League final, uh, every time Griezmann would show up and be that guy for us, and he wasn't that guy during March, and it felt sad to watch him because the times that he did show up, we didn't manage to win the game. Even then, is like that Barcelona game we played against when we got those first two goals that we scored. Griezmann is pivotal to both of those goals. He is there every time he makes that pass. He does what he needs to do. And it's like, even in his bad set of form, he's showing us that he's whatever. And then it's still, we lost it. And it's like, oh, okay. So, you know, I'm going to follow up on what both of you all said with Longley. Tired of him. I'm tired. I'm tired. Every time we have a moment where you need to react, you need to anticipate, you need to create that difference where you need to make it hard for the attacker to score on Atletico. Longley has not responded well in that month, and it shows both before and after the games that we effectively drop out of competition. So I during those games, not great. Right after the game, Real Valladolid, I haven't scored a goal in 3 or 4 games straight. They're just a terrible team. 2 goals straight, and it's directly Longley's fault. I can't exaggerate it enough. That is awful. And then the Espanyol game. Espanyol have no chances on us. None. Zero. Right? Aspilicueta scores his first ever La Liga goal, and it's an amazing
It was
goal.
a banger. It was a great
Amazing. I was like, wow, this is how we win this game.
goal.
Oh man,
Unless.
great. My fault for believing. My fault. And then Longley just loses his mind. And I just like I'm tired of it because it's like I see
It's
what
too
you
early.
can
It's,
do.
it's too early, bro. It's too early. Like we still have a Club World Cup to play for. Don't
No,
worry.
yeah.
I
It still
don't want him next season. I've said that very plainly.
No, I get it, man. I get it. I think if he comes on a free transfer, which it seems like he's going to stay on a free transfer
Unfortunately.
for better and for worse. I think he's a fine squad option. I understand the value of having a player like him in the squad, but the positional mistakes. I wrote about this in August when his loan was announced.
We saw it coming.
We saw it coming in August, man. Like those first 4 months were great, but then he activates the bozo gene that's in him,
Yeah.
and I got tired. By the start of May, I was so tired. I just wanted it to be over.
Yeah.
I needed a break. I'm on this break right now, and I still need a break.
Yeah. Every time I see Longley in the news cycle, I get a little more scared. It's like, please, not today. But it's like Longley, and that period of time, it's like you can see why Simeone likes him. You have the ability to create those small short passes for the build up, being able to create that moment in time where I can effectively take away press by doing certain things, but it doesn't always work. And so it's like if it's 95% times out of 100, he will get that good pass and be able to build up inside and out, and then we get to the other half of the pitch like that, and then we're doing something special, like in the Barcelona games, where in the we did that exact same thing. That goal that Lino scored, that comes from Longley being able to think on his feet and create something special, but it comes at a very bad cost of of just not being able to anticipate in the box. And Atletico, and part of the reason why I love Atletico for so many years was that defensive solidity, was that ability to like watching Atletico games is almost like a what do you call it, like a thrill seeking moment. That 1-0 in those games, you're just like, whoo, all right, we survived today. Let's see what my heart can handle next week. And like it's just like
Exactly.
but these times it's like, all right, are we gonna get a clean sheet? Is my question. Is not are we going to win the game? Is are we even gonna get a clean sheet? And it's like that I feel so sad because like some of my best moments watching Atletico were in those that 2020-21 season, for instance, where we just like that Elche game, I think it was, where Llorente does like a Superman pose, somehow touches the ball with his hand, and it's a penalty. And I'm just like, there's no way we're losing this game. He hits the post. We do all these other things, and it's just like these kind of moments in a game were what in like makes Atletico, and it's like it's so much drama, unnecessary drama. You don't get that in Barcelona. Barcelona scores 3, 4, 5 goals, and it's just like they don't care if they concede two. They're scoring more, right? That's their way. Atletico
Well,
is just like, I'm scoring that one
it's the
goal.
part of our DNA. It's the part of our DNA, bro. We have to
Yeah,
suffer.
Yeah.
and Longley doesn't feel like the
That's
part of our DNA. It doesn't feel like it, and I feel like our defense is something that was the part that really let us down in that period of time in March. Yes, the final third obviously not great. I couldn't stress that enough. But those two headers against Barcelona made me feel sick to my stomach. Like genuinely sick to my stomach. I was like, you can't get free headers against like Atletico. That's not something that should happen. That should never happen.
Yep.
Like a nice same thing. Longley misses a header, and then is a free header into our back, and I was just like, okay, it's just whatever. I don't want to. I'm focusing too much on Longley and not on Atletico, and it's
we'll make a special episode for Longley for you.
Yeah. You just clip this episode, make a special one about Clement
but
Longley, guys.
Yeah,
yeah.
good idea, actually, good idea.
So
But yeah,
that's it.
anyway,
I'm cutting myself short. I'm doing too much. Yeah.
but yeah, anyway, moving on to the last part of the season. So I think after with the disaster month of March, I think there was no consistency within the club. We were winning one match by 4-0, and then the next match we were literally losing, and then we were struggling with the goal as well. So I think there was no consistency, and I think when it comes to like last few games, I think it was a very good chance for us to play the academy kids, for example, of Saidu and then Raine, and then we just gave. I think this one we just gave debut to one academy player that was Adrianino, and that too again. I think it was again Leganes. I can't remember
That was Ilaganis,
which.
yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So like I was expecting like more debuts because I think Champions League was pretty much secured with a few matches remaining. And so I think I was hoping to see some academy players at the last part of the season, which didn't really happen. I think one match was definitely there, which I think we could have played academy kids. We had those kids on the bench as well, and that was I think the game against it was against I forgot. Yeah, Valladolid, which for some reason we were fucking up. I don't understand. Like they're literally crying their heart out for against the president, which is again R9, and then they're having a very bad season as well. And then we can see 2 goals from them. Like it's bizarre to me. And again, Sorloth had a very good chance in that match as well. For me, I think Sorloth could have literally gone for Pichichi. Don't get me wrong. He had those many chances. He could have had numerous hit tricks this season. You just picked the game. Espanyol at the start of the season, eventually Real Betis, and then there's Real Valladolid. Like he could have scored so many goals this season. He had plenty of chances. But anyway, I think that was a chance because that match like just like hanged on to like much like we needed that win against Valladolid because that would have been embarrassing.
Mhm.
Eventually, we end up winning that game with 4-2, and then again that's inconsistency. So like when there's nothing to play for, like we literally play with like we are the best team in the world. Like yeah, like we are the champions. Salah scoring 5 goals, 4 goals against Sociedad, and then again at the last match day as well, he's scoring a hat trick for fun. Like it's nothing. And like I don't understand, to be honest, this one. So I think my question now is, this is the problem I have with Atletico Madrid. Whenever someone steps up, for example, Salah stepping up with the last part of the season, we suddenly go into like the calm zone, like, oh, like we have, like we don't need actually need a striker. Korea leaving, fine, no problem. We have Solo, and then Griezmann is gonna be on the bench. So this is where I think the problem is. Like, we don't take things seriously. These matches don't really matter. I think the matches which mattered was against Barcelona, Real Madrid, where Julian Alvarez. I think Julian Alvarez performed in the all big matches. Solo, he did perform against Barcelona. Again, he has some grudge against them. I have no idea. But I think we do need a striker. We do need a starting striker. Sorloth is good, but coming off the bench is good for me, I would say. Same with Longley. I think he scored that goal against Girona in the final match day, and then suddenly, like the board members, are like, "Oh, we have a defender who can score goals, who can pass the ball. Like we should go for him. Like, why should we invest in some other defender?" This is the problem I have. But anyway, I'm gonna ask you guys this. So, like, what do you guys think about the last part of the season, and what do you guys think about this performances of Sorloth and Longley at the last part of the season? Again, Jeremy, go on.
I mean, fairly quietly, Atletico did end the season with 19 points from the last 9 league games, which is close to an 80-point pace over a full season. The quality of those performances varied, but the results were more or less there, even if it wasn't really pretty to watch. The performances against Las Palmas and Osasuna particularly were pretty shameful, especially the Osasuna game. That was a pretty disgraceful performance from several players, borderline unprofessional. We talked about it on my show, just how disappointing that was and how it left such kind of ugly feelings about the work that is ahead this summer and whether or not the club is going to undertake that work. Serloth is just such a weird case because La Liga has never seen a player with this kind of efficiency. Set a new league record for goals off the bench this season with 12 goals, a goal every close to 80 minutes, which is incredible. Those are elite figures. Those are Erling Haaland figures. However, 45% of Serloth's goals this season came in 3 games. Real Sociedad, in which he scored the poker, the Leganés brace, and the hat trick against Girona. So when you break it down like that, he's scoring a goal every 3 games. Now, that is in part because he's coming off the bench. I get it. But given the kind of player Serloth has been throughout his career, and he turns 30 next season, like, it's not as if the Leopard is suddenly going to change his spots. I like Serloth. I didn't have like any expectations for him. I was not in favor of that signing. Not that I was banging the door down for Artem Dovbyk either, but I really wasn't a fan of signing Serloth, and he surpassed my very low expectations for him. That being said, Alex, I think you're right. I do think Atletico do need to go for a striker this summer, whether that is making a really audacious move for Victor Gyökeres or signing someone a bit more modest like Darwin Nunez, for example. Atletico do need to reinforce the forward line. They do need to find someone who can be trusted as a starter over Serloth and probably over Griezmann too. I have a lot of reservations over the renewal agreement that he just signed. I know that it's going to help the club's salary margin. You take his $6 million net salary and spread it out over 2 years. That's a Miguel Angel Gil special, guys. The club loves that. And it does allow you that extra salary margin to maybe make a signing, although, knowing this club, we'll see. Longley, I mean, we've talked about Longley kind of extensively on this show, but I mean, as a 4th or 5th center back, sure, fine. His value has been rehabilitated this season, and he's of no use to Barcelona. And it behooves Barca to cut him loose on a free transfer and just stop paying his wages if he agrees to forego like the final year of his wages there. He just got called up to the France team for the Nations League squad. That's great news for him. Like, on a personal level, that's wonderful for him. In terms of this is a business, though. This is a results-oriented business. Is Clement Longley going to get us closer to winning? I doubt it. That's why I think there probably is a place for him in the squad next year, whether I like it or not, but it should be as a 4th or 5th defender. And it is also going to be dependent on what system we play, which is further going to be dependent on what kind of players we're going to sign. And there is still, 6 days before the end of this extraordinary transfer window before the Club World Cup, there is still very little clarity on Atletico's targets beyond Alex Baena, Johnny Cardoso, Cuti Romero, maybe Piero Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen. But the end of the season, we can draw some conclusions from it. It further reinforces the kinds of players that probably should leave this summer. Nahuel Molina is one of them. I think Molina just needs a change of scenery. Whether he's become kind of just a piñata for a lot of the fans, and I don't think it's entirely fair, but I get it. He just hasn't been at the level for 2 years now. Tomolema, they have to sort out an exit for him. Absolutely have to. He needs, just for his own good, you got to get his wages off the books. You have to find a way to get Saul's wages off the books once and for all. Samuel Lino is probably going to be on the market and is probably going to leave this summer. Same with Rodrigo Riquelme. There are 6, 7, 8 players like last summer who are going to leave. And whereas last summer was about raising the floor, this one is about raising the ceiling. And although Atletico ended the season with 6 wins out of 9 in the league, the quality of those performances just further underscored where they need to improve. They have to have a functioning left side. They have to have a left back who is not Galano Reynaldo. They have to find an answer at the left wing position. You have to just renew the defense as a whole, and you have to find a partner for Alvarez who is going to be more reliable than Sirloth or a 34-year-old Antoine Griezmann.
True. I mean, I pretty much agree on you, but I would say I think we have to find a backup for Llorente as well in the right back position, because I
That's a
think
good point.
Molina is a very good backup for Llorente, but if we lose Molina, we recently heard the news that Atleti won't sell him for less than 30 million. But then when we were trying him for swap deal for Theo Hernandez, they declined. So I have no idea what's going on in that part of the business. But I think if you're looking for a backup, then who do you go for? Jesus Aresto, who we linked with from Osasuna. I mean that's even the worst position, to be honest. Even though for these players, I think maybe he can obviously prove me wrong, but I think that's a very bad option. It's either keep Molina because he's a good backup option for Llorente. So I think it's a lot of things to see, but yeah, I think the left-hand side definitely has to change. Those 4 players has to go. Even the fact that there's some part of fan base loves Rodrigo Riquelme for his looks, which is good. Okay, fine, whatever your preference is, I don't mind it. But still, we have to move on from those things as well. We actually need quality, because as Simeone said, what our main objective of the season is to close that gap between Real Madrid and Barcelona, which I think we are actually doing it. But are we doing it in a good way? Are we going on a slow pace, or are we going on a good pace? That's the question. Because if we're going on a slow pace, it's going to take years to reach that goal. And if we're going on a good pace, I think within the next few seasons, I think we can reach that point. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna get stretched up. It's a different topic. But anyways, in case, what do you think about the last part of the season and those performances of long dance or what?
I'm not allowed to talk about Longley for the rest of this podcast.
Yes. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, sorry.
When it comes to centre backs, I think we've talked extensively on how we feel about Mourinho. I think part of me wanted him to stay because I didn't trust Lonomond and Jimenez's injury record. I thought at the time that we had enough time. I believe that we could have given him enough minutes to allow him to evolve properly, like he did at Alaves this season. That wasn't the case, thankfully, actually. Lonomond, unfortunately, did get a big injury, and he did have a lot of his minutes cut, and it did kind of affect him. But Jimenez, this is one of his best seasons in terms of minutes in some years. Ironically, the other season that he did this was in I think it was 22-23 season, where he basically played through a knee injury for 4 or 5 months straight. It's so it's strange, but again, I think it's one of those, centre back is one of those positions where we do need to have depth, and we do need to have quality depth, because if a Jimenez gets injured, throughout since the title winning season to now, right? If Jimenez gets injured, our defense immediately just tanks. If Jimenez and Savage get injured, we're not going to keep a clean sheet. That's just that's a consistent theme throughout the years. And it's players like Mourinho, who could be 4 million that we could just bring in, who's a young player has shown a very, very high level of defending. He maybe isn't the best passer, but I think is one of those things with maybe that's just the team because I don't think you'll find a good passer in that team, period. But it you kind of look at what our squad itself is. It's like we have a lot of good players. We do not have a lot of incredibly high quality players. Lamar, I'm a huge fan of Lamar. I've been a huge fan of Lamar for years. Lamar has played about 5 games in the past 2 years. That's not acceptable, honestly. And I even
Wow,
me who loves
the whole season ends, and like we forgot to mention Lemar. Damn.
right. So it's like the fact that we barely got to mention Lamar in this entire motion should speak to the fact that he kind of just does need to leave. The fact that we even talking about Saul kind of like confuses me in a lot of different ways. I thought this was dealt with last season. Um, the fact that we still like Raquel May, I think he is a good quality player, but he is not a good quality player maybe for this league or probably not for Atletico. I think his decision making in the final third has never really been at the level that we need. I think Lino has really come at an unfortunate time because the reality is we do need time, like funds for a market transfer window. And even though I want him to stay, the reality is he's probably going to have to go. And it's a shame because I think for a player who can be that kind of quality and depth that we just talked about, we don't really have market value anywhere else. Our squad is very old. And the players that we could potentially sell probably don't want to leave. The Paul isn't going to leave right now. He wants to stay. Um, you don't want to sell Jimenez for a lot of different reasons because he's one of those captain players. But I think if we get a ridiculous offer for him, the club will probably consider it. Unfortunately, it's like there's so much that goes on. Is like we're dealing with the repercussions of a lot of other flaws, but at the same time, the end of the season has also shown some really interesting spots because Simeone has experimented a little bit. We got to see what Barrios was like again as an eight, and it was fantastic, and I loved it. It was amazing to watch. He scored his first goal in La Liga, and it felt like he was just going to the floodgates were going to just unleash. Unfortunately, he didn't score again, but the chance creation, what he did on and off the ball, amazing. I forgot how good he was. And he was already great this season. You know what I mean? And the same is the feeling again with some other players where we got to see, I think, some of Gallagher's best season so far at the end of the season, where we got to see him be really good off the ball in terms of movement, in terms of being able to pass, and these other things. So with all of these different aspects, is like that should inform your next decisions. Do I believe an Atletico in a transfer window? No, I have a lot of very large case studies showing that we're not going to do a lot of things very smart. Um, Part of me really wants to believe that this academy, we get a few players in that could probably actually almost curb some of the spending. I don't believe in Jesus Arezzo. I don't like him in terms of a player. I think he's arguably putting our floor further downwards, if anything. If you don't like Molina, you're probably not gonna like Arezzo. That's all. That's my honest opinion on that. So you probably do need to look at the academy if you want to sell Molina. If you sell Molina, go into the academy, get somebody who can almost bridge that gap and allow you to get to that next level, or get a allow for a centre back to be able to kind of cover some of that responsibility when Llorente needs some of the rest. There's options, but the point is,
Or do something stupid. Do something stupid. Turn Giuliano into a right back. Which I won't be surprised, but yeah.
I well, anyway, we're gonna pretend that's not gonna happen. We're gonna but there's a lot of different things that we should be looking at in terms of the not just the transfer window but also our objectives, because I think this, as much as we talk about this, I think this season was, I think it was a good season. I think the highs that I felt in terms of the season were very, very high, but it's just unfortunate that the lows were very low at the same time. I think we saw some of the feelings of the squad, and what could be improved. We know for a fact Simeone is still a world-class coach. Despite the flaws in the squad, we look like one of the best teams in Europe again. Despite some of the reluctance from the board to really help him, we still managed to do something great. I think this season we could have maybe won the league. We could have maybe won the Champions League. We could have maybe won the Copa del Rey. We got to semifinals in Copa del Rey again, and yet this time I felt like we actually had a chance of winning. And this time we were playing against Barcelona, not Athletic Bilbao. I think if we played Athletic Bilbao in the semis this year in comparison to last year, I'm fairly certain we would have won. Like I feel confident we would have won. I feel maybe if we didn't get to play against Real Madrid, we wouldn't have been cheated out of the same situation. We probably would have actually won a penalty shootout. Maybe, there's a lot of maybes, but I think we want some certainty next season, and I think that's what we should be looking for. I think that's the kind of objective that we should be trying to achieve next season.
Which comes to my last question of this video, actually. So basically, we finished La Liga in third place with 76 points, same as last season. And then the Champions League, the new created Champions League, we got knocked out in the round of 16, whatever you want to call. And then the next one, the Copa del Rey, we made it into semifinals. So what do you guys think? Was it a good season? Was there an improvement? Or like how much would you like rate this season according to you? What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, it was a good season. Our competitive level significantly increased. And as St. Keeks was saying a moment ago, I felt very good about this team competitively, and I haven't felt that we were a serious contender to win even one competition over the last 4 years. This is the best I felt about Atletico in the last 4 years. And part of that was because of the additions that were made, I think generated a bit more of a balanced squad. Certainly during that 15-game winning streak, we looked extremely balanced. And it also psychologically was a very good thing for the squad that, oh my goodness, the board is investing. It must be a blue moon. The board is finally spending money and trying to raise the floor so that a season like 2023-24 does not happen again, because we were totally pitiful. You can question what the board's motivations were. I mean, it is pretty well known that they are planning a sale in the next 2 to 4 years. The identity of that buyer remains to be seen. So you can question why the investment, why it happened. You can question the motivations, but it happened. The team was better this season. It was a disappointing ending because there were expectations that, for better or worse, we assigned in what was nominally a transitional season. So there were plenty of good things, but plenty of things to work on. For example, you have to renew the defense. You have to figure out what the most sustainable tactical formation is for this team. You have to identify players of the appropriate level. You have to surround Julian Alvarez, a genuine world-class star. Players of this caliber, when they come to La Liga, they don't come to Atletico. They go play for Real Madrid. They go play for Barcelona. They spend the rest of their careers there. If we're going to keep Alvarez here and we're going to keep him happy and we're going to win historic things with him, we have to surround him. The board has to go to work and surround him with players of the appropriate caliber. So that is the next big job for a board that is not used to really doing that unless there are significant sales. So we'll see how that transpires, but in the end, it was a good season. I really enjoyed a lot of what we did this season. Parts of it were pretty surprising, both positively and negatively. And the Club World Cup is starting in the next 10 or 11 days. We've spoken on my podcast about what Atletico should or should not do in that competition. You do want to win it. You do want the prize money. You do want the exposure. But a lot of these stadiums are going to be half empty. Ticket prices have just been going up and down. So, I mean, Atletico started the Rose Bowl. That's a 90,000 seat stadium. I bet there are going to be about 40,000 there to watch us play PSG. So how seriously do you want to take that tournament? How important is the prize money? How is it going to interfere with the transfer business and with the preseason? A very important preseason ahead if Atletico are going to continue on this upward trajectory and really challenge, really push harder for a domestic trophy or European trophy next year.
True. Anything you want to add, St. Keeks, to the closing marks before we end this video?
I think to follow that vein, I think something that I feel like we should really do, and I keep on advocating for this, even though seemingly doesn't agree with me, which is pushing for that academy and integration with some of these players, because I think we saw last season some really special players from the academy in that preseason. We saw some really interesting things that I kind of wish we could have gotten to see a little bit more in this season. And I think it's always important for a team, especially a European team, to have those players who identify with the club, not just from the transfers, but from inside of your own team. And it's like, we have Koke, we have Barrios, we have these players, right? But it's like, in years gone by, we had what Rodri, Partey, Koke, Saul. You know, it's like these are like born and bred Atletico in terms of they've been here since who knows how long. It's like I kind of think that kind of pulls out a little bit extra from your players, even though they may not. As a player who could be a 7 out of 10 for Celta Vigo could be a 9 out of 10 for Real Betis if you came out in Real Betis, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it means for some players, and that's kind of what it should mean for Atletico. And I think the Club World Cup should be partially looking into figuring out what happens next season in terms of what makes sense for your squad, what makes sense for your transfer window, who are you going to keep, who are you going to sell. I think most of what is going to go out is already figured out. I think some people are on trial. So we'll see. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
So there you go, guys. It's been, I think this is one of our longest video we recorded so far on our channel. So, I mean, like, thank you guys for sticking until this time period. And thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us today. And hopefully we can make more videos together and talk more about Atletico de Madrid, which is we like to talk about. And until then, do let us know your opinion, guys, in the comment section. What do you think about the whole season? Who are your best players and everything? And closing on the final note, I would just say, like, hopefully the next season is much better than the last season, and hopefully we can get our hands on the trophy as well. Until then, guys, of course, you guys can check Jeremy's channel on the description channel, sorry, description link. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching the video. And until then, Opa Atleti.